Mhm. Hello and welcome.
Hello.
In honor of International Holocaust Remembrance Day on January 27th, Eva Hnizdo and I have planned a series of short videos in which we'll discuss our books about the Holocaust. Eva, who you see here with me, will talk about her novel, Why Didn't They Leave? And I'll speak about my children's book, The Crystal Beads, Lalka's Journey. The books are very different, but there are common themes that emerge. And as we go through our series of discussions, we'll be discussing these and we'll be highlighting them as well. Eva's book is now available for purchase at Amazon, and mine will be published later in 2022. So I'm going to turn this over to Eva for her to tell us about her book.
My book is a family saga starting in 1938, and it is a lot about emigration in different times. It incorporates my family history, but it is mostly fiction. Whenever I hear about refugees in the news, I think of my own family history and how people can find that their home is no longer safe. Suddenly, they don't belong. Their identity changes because their identity doesn't only depend on what they think, but how other people see them. I started writing the novel in 2016 after my mother, who was a Holocaust survivor, died. I wanted to find out more about my family history, and I spoke to many relatives living abroad, some of who left before the Holocaust and others who survived it and left after the war. I found so many stories about suffering, bravery, luck. And in my novel, one question dominated everything. Why didn't they leave Czechoslovakia? That family history dilemma was part of my life too, in 1968 with the Soviet invasion and in the time after. In 1986, I emigrated from Prague to the West. Fleeing from communist Czechoslovakia wasn't easy, but we were lucky. The Cold War was still on. The refugees from communist countries could get political asylum. We were also European, white, and I was a doctor. In my novel, several people had an opportunity to emigrate, but didn't leave and died in the concentration camps. But it was also hard for the ones who did emigrate with their survivor's guilt. In November 1989, 3.5 years after we emigrated, the communist regime in Czechoslovakia collapsed. Whenever members of my family thought about emigrating but didn't actually leave, they made a mistake, sometimes paying for it with their lives. In my case, some might say, I made a mistake not to stay. Was it worth the struggle? Living in a foreign country is challenging, but mixing with different cultures makes people realize that it is not important what race or nation we are all human. But there is just me talking about my book. High time for you to tell us something about your book.
Okay, thank you, Eva. A long time ago, I heard a story, and it was about a little girl during the Holocaust. And for a long time, that story just continued to haunt me. So the first thing I did was I wrote it as a short story, and it got published in jewishfiction.net. And I continued to work on the story because I felt like it needed to develop from there. And it turned out being a story about a young girl who was asked to make a sacrifice. This is during the time in Poland during the Holocaust. She was asked to give up something precious that belonged to her. And her mother had to make a heartbreaking decision in order to keep her daughter safe. So I published that first as a short story, but I realized something. I needed to pass the story on to children who could carry the message to future generations. Okay. Messages of empathy and compassion. That's what told me that I needed to write this as a children's book. But it's not just a children's book. It's actually designed for readers of all ages. And to make that possible, what I did is I designed it in a way that it had two study guides. One study guide with asking a series of questions for children to discuss with their parents and their teachers, and a second study guide with a set of questions for adults. These would be adults who would gather in, say, places of worship, in book clubs, and in small groups, so they can explore these themes of compassion, empathy, and acceptance of diversity. So my goal is to have a book that can be shared with everyone, despite what age they are.
I think this is fascinating. The story is simple so that even children can understand it, but it also creates so many questions. And the fact that the notes and
Mhm.
plan about how to discuss it with children or in book clubs are already there is brilliant. And I think that just opens so many possibilities and so many questions and answers. And I think that's something really useful.
Thank you, Eva. And I think both of our books really explore such important themes, and in our future discussions, we will cover these as I said before. But for today, we're going to end the video. We will publish the next part in a while, and at that point, we'll be reading and discussing excerpts from our books. So stay tuned, and we'll be back with you when we can.
Thank you
Goodbye,
for
everyone.
doing it with me, and thank you for watching, and hopefully I will stumble less next time. We're looking forward to see you. Bye.
Bye-bye, Eva. Thanks, everyone. Bye.